Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text number Munaya Uchuhu. O Vami Haitya Bhagavat Paricharya Yochai Taddharminam Nivasatam Vishamasvabhavaha Tasmin Prashanta Purushe Gata Vigraheva Kovatmavat Kuhakayo Parishankaniyaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The sages said, who are these two persons who have developed such a discordant mentality, even though they are posted in the service of the Lord, in the highest position, and are expected to have developed the same qualities as the Lord? Who are these two persons living in Vaikuntha? Where is the possibility of an enemy's coming into this kingdom of God? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no enemy. Who could be envious of Him? Probably these two persons are impostors. Therefore they suspect others to be like themselves. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The difference between the inhabitants of a Vaikuntha planet and those of a material planet is that in Vaikuntha, all the residents engage in the service of the Lord Himself and are equipped with all His good qualities. It has been analyzed by great personalities that when a conditioned soul is liberated and becomes a devotee, about 79% of all the good qualities of the Lord develop in his person. Therefore, in the Vaikuntha world, there is no question of enmity between the Lord and the residents. Here in this material world, the citizens may be inimical to the chief executives or heads of state. But in Vaikuntha, there is no such mentality. One is not allowed to enter Vaikuntha unless he has completely developed the good qualities. The basic principle of goodness is to accept the subordination to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sages therefore were surprised to see that the two doormen who checked them from entering the palace were not exactly like the residents of Vaikuntha Loka. It may be said that a doorman's duty is to determine who should be allowed to enter the palace and who should not. But that is not relevant in this matter because no one is allowed to enter the Vaikuntha planets unless he has developed 100% his mentality of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. No enemy of the Lord can enter Vaikuntha Loka. The Kumaras concluded that the only reason for the doormen's checking them was that the doormen themselves were impostors. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So we are seeing in this part of the Bhagavatam, the sages have come to Vaikuntha and they have been stopped by the doorkeepers, and so they are very angry at them, and now they begin to speak. Munaya Uchuhu. Who are these two people who have come to this Vaikuntha, Nivasatam, who are residing in Vaikuntha, and they must have come to this position of residing in Vaikuntha because of Bhagavat Paryayochaihi, Bhagavat Paricharyaya, by serving the Lord, by rendering devotional service to the Lord, they must have become Nivasatam, residents of Vaikuntha. and Uchaihi, and also received a very elevated position in the spiritual world. So, and it is expected that they are Tat Dharminam, that they have developed the same qualities as the Lord. Dharminam, same dharma, same nature, same qualities of the Lord. But the Lord is Tasmin Prashanta Purushe. The Lord is Prashanta Purusha. And Gata Vigrahe. And there is no hostility. There are no enemies for the Lord. So, these two doormen, Kuhakayoho, why are they showing such duplicity? Parishankaniyaha, and they are doubting. Atmavat. So they must themselves be impostors, and so they are thinking others are also impostors, like themselves. Who are these two persons who have developed such a discordant mentality? That was another word. Vishamasvabhavaha. Tad dharminam nivasatam vishamasvabhavaha. They have developed such a discordant vishamasvabhava. Even though they are posted in the service of the Lord in the highest position, paricharyaya uchaihi, and are expected to have developed the same qualities as the Lord, tat dharminam. How are these two persons living in Vaikunta? Nivasatam. Where is the possibility of an enemies coming into this kingdom of God? Who could be envious of him? Probably these two persons are impostors. Therefore they suspect others to be like themselves, Atmavat. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has brought out some very important, very interesting observations. That these doormen who are expected to be tat dharminam, who have the same qualities as the Lord, and that has been analyzed, Prabhupada says here, it has been analyzed by great personalities. Rupa Goswami has analyzed that when the living entity evolves spiritually, he develops many wonderful qualities, and when you list them, they are about 79% of the Lord's qualities. So that is what Prabhupada is referring to. It has been analyzed by great personalities that when a conditioned soul is liberated and becomes a devotee, about 79% of all the good qualities of the Lord develop in his person. So that was expected of them, tat dharminam. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, idam gnanam upashritya mama sadharmyam agataha. Now I will tell you this knowledge, Arjuna, idam gnanam upashritya, and if you take shelter of this knowledge, mama sadharmyam agataha, you will develop same qualities like me. Mama sadharmyam agataha. That is referring to, you will come to my nature. Mama sadharmyam. You will also become transcendental like me. Of course, Mayavadis make that mistake and say, we will become God. That is not the intention. Mama sadharmyam agataha means you will also develop the same nature. Sadharmyam. Dharma refers to nature. Just like the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. The dharma of water is to be liquid. So in the same way, same nature one will achieve. So these great personalities, Bhagavat Paricharyaya Uchaihi Nivasatam, they are residents of Vaikunta, and they have achieved this position by Bhagavat Paricharyaya, by rendering great service. So Tadharminam, so they must also be having great qualities like the Lord, but they are Vishamasvabhavaha. They have developed svabhavaha, a certain mentality, which is Vishama. So, Prabhupada has translated the word Vishama as discordant. This word Vishama means, it has a sense. Krishna uses this word, Kutastva kashmalamidam Vishame samupastitaha. How have you, this is the very first opening words of Krishna. How is this, Arjuna? In this hour of crisis, you have developed these impurities. Kutastva kashmalamidam Vishame samupastitaha. Anaryam jushtum asvargyam. And so on. In the verse, Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam budhav. Krupaya tava pada pankaja stita dhuli sadrusham vichintaya. Vishame bhavam budhav. And Prabhupada translates the word Vishame bhavam budhav. Bhava, ambudhi, that is material existence, which is like an ocean, is Vishame, Vishama bhavam budhav. It is horrible. This material ocean, material existence is a terrible existence. That's the first thing as devotees we should realize. Mostly we think that this material existence is a wonderful place. So, this material existence is Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam budav. Mam patitam, I have somehow fallen vishame bhavam budav into this horrible, terrible ocean of material existence. So, that is the sense of the word Vishama, terrible, horrible. Such a horrible mentality they have developed. Vishamasvabhavaha, tadharminam. They must have Lord's mentality, Lord's nature. Nivasatam, they are living in the Vaikunta. Vishamasvabhavaha. How have they developed these mentalities? Is the question that the sages are wondering about. Who are these personalities who have developed such mentality? And it's very nice in the purport if you see how Prabhupada relates Tadharminam, one who has all wonderful qualities, all good qualities, and he relates with the word Vishamasvabhavaha, discordant mentality. Let's see this. The difference between the inhabitants of a Vaikunta planet and those of a material planet is that in Vaikunta, all the residents engage in the service of the Lord Himself and are equipped with all His good qualities. They are equipped with all His good qualities. They are endowed with all good qualities. It has been analyzed by great personalities that when a conditioned soul is liberated and becomes a devotee, about 79% of all the good qualities of the Lord develop in his person. Therefore, in the Vaikuntha, there is no question of enmity between the Lord and the residents. Gata Vigrahe. Also, this verse, we should note, is describing the spiritual world situation. What is the nature of the spiritual world? All this is very important because in the Bhagavatam it is going to come up. Why we have to answer this question? Why the residents of Vaikuntha have behaved like this? To curse, to stop the four Kumaras. Why have they done that? We have to answer that question. And we will see how Bhagavatam answers and how Srila Prabhupada brings that out. So wonderful. It is all related to finally understanding Krishna. Otherwise we will not understand. All these Prabhupada says, these early cantos are preparing us for understanding the 10th canto. So that's the preparation. So all these words are all very important. Gata Vigraha. There are no enemies in the spiritual world. Everyone is Tat Dharminam. No Vishamasvabhavaha. They don't have a discordant behavior. But these two doormen have exhibited Vishamasvabhavaha. So, here in the material world, the citizens may be inimical to the chief executives or heads of state. But in Vaikuntha, there is no such mentality. One is not allowed to enter Vaikuntha unless he has completely developed all the good qualities. One cannot enter. That's the basic premise. But now here there are two Vaikuntha Vasis. And they are showing Vishamasvabhavaha. How do we explain this? One is not allowed to enter Vaikuntha unless he has completely developed the good qualities. Now, Prabhupada points out, the basic principle of goodness is to accept subordination to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We may talk about great qualities of a person. Prabhupada is pointing out here, the basic principle of goodness is to accept subordination of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without that, there is no meaning to all other good qualities. There's a very important reason. Prabhupada is using the word Vishamasvabhavaha, discordant mentality. And Prabhupada has talked about this basic principle of goodness to accept subordination of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will see the links between all of these. Very interesting point Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. About a year back, the Supreme Court of India came up with one important judgment. It was considered to be a landmark judgment. Very special judgment. And the judgment was a politician who is convicted in any court immediately becomes disqualified to be in the office. So, an MLA or an MP, if they are convicted by any court, immediately they become disqualified. And this was considered as a landmark judgment. Why is that so? There is some relevance to what we are reading in the purport today. So when a person becomes convicted by any court, it is said that he cannot be a representative of people, he cannot hold the office in the parliament or in the assembly, and he cannot even cast his vote anymore. That's what the landmark judgment is about. In other words, the lawmakers, these are all the lawmakers, right? MPs and the MLAs. The lawmakers themselves cannot be lawbreakers. Right? That's the idea of this judgment. Why is this so? Because in our modern society, an important point is, if you want to have a civilized society, not a jungle, not a wild society, like in the forest. If you want to have a civilized society, you have to have law-abiding people. Willingness to abide by the laws is an important requirement to have a civilized society. The moment you drive a car and enter the street, you are supposed to follow the traffic laws. If you start driving and if you say, why should I follow the traffic laws? That is called discordant mentality. Vishama Swabhava. The moment you are a citizen in the state, you have to understand you are bound by the laws of the state. If you ask the question, why should I follow the laws of the state? That's called Vishama Swabhava. It is expected. It's a basic, fundamental requirement. Otherwise you cannot organize the society. You cannot have a civilized society. So everyone has to be law-abiding. And when such an important requirement is there for everyone in the society, how can the lawmakers then say themselves be lawbreakers? It's not possible. So they cannot hold that office. So in other words, a very important factor is, when we are in the part of the society, we have to be law-abiding. Because that is expected. That is expected to be part of the system. In the same way, every living entity, by nature, by his constitution, by his makeup, he is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And hence, subordination to the Supreme Lord is the basic quality every living entity must agree to. Because we are part of the system. We are not standalone. Every organ in the body is expected to work for the well-being of the whole body. If any part of the body starts thinking, why should I work for the whole body? I will just work for my own goodness, my own self. That is called Vishama Swabhava. Discordant. Discordant means not incongruous, not appropriate, not fitting. It is not appropriate for the organ of the body to think like that. I will not work for the whole body. If an organ of the body doesn't work for the whole body, we become diseased immediately, isn't it? Because that's the nature of every organ. In the same way, every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhutas sanatana. And hence, it is our nature to be working in subordination to the Supreme Lord. When we disagree to work that way, that is called Vishama Swabhava. We come into this material world because we have developed that Vishama Swabhava. When we turn away from Krishna, refuse to serve the Lord, work in subordination to the Lord, then that is called discordant behavior. We are not expected to be like that. Because that's our very nature. Just like a citizen has to be law-abiding, because he's part of the society system. part of the government system. That is necessary. In the same way, we are, by our nature, we are part and parcel of the Lord, and we have to act according to our nature, which is to act in subordination to the Lord. But the Lord does not expect that subordination forcefully. That is why He has given free will to the living entity. And so some of us have misused the free will, and moment we misuse the free will and develop the Vishamasva Bhava, we are here. That's why we are all here. We are a bunch of people who have developed this Vishamasva Bhava, and we are all here in this material world. This is what has happened. So, we are here in the material world. So Krishna expects us to rectify this mentality, give up our Vishamasva Bhava, and accept subordination. That is a basic quality of goodness. You can't say this man has got all great, very, very good qualities, but he is not subordinate to God. It's like saying that he's won all the votes and he has become an MLA and MP, but he himself now and then breaks the laws. That's not accepted. He is immediately disqualified. In the same way, one cannot expect to have the basic good quality of a living entity is subordination to the Lord. That is why Prabhupada gave this example. If we don't accept subordination to the Lord and talk about many other great lofty qualities, there is no meaning to it. And a very nice example Prabhupada gave is a bunch of thieves robbed a bank. They all got together and robbed the bank. And they got a lot of money and they ran out of the city and they hid themselves. And then all of them sat together and said, see, we have all worked very hard for this money. We should be very fair, honest, just, truthful in dividing this money. Right? For getting the money, there was no truthfulness, no justice, nothing. After that, they talk about it. You see? So, our basic existence is that we are part and parcel of the Lord. If we don't recognize that and talk about so many other things, what is the meaning to that? That's why Prabhupada is saying here, the basic principle of goodness is to accept subordination to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, this subordination is the basic good quality. And Krishna expects that surrender, subordination is the first step. Then Krishna says that subordination should be intense. It is not, of course, that subordination should be with free will. And then that subordination should be intense in the sense, it should not be just a light thing. That is why that verse, Jayatam suratau pangor mama manda mater gati mat sarvasva padam bhojo mat sarvasva. My dear Lord Krishna, you are my everything. Mat sarvasva. You are everything for me. That's the kind of a subordination. Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, mat karma kran, mat paramo, mat bhakta sanghavarjitaha. Mat karma kran, mat paramaha. Mat paramaha means accepting Krishna as the ultimate goal in life. When we are in ignorance, we may have so many goals in life. Now, after having come to this knowledge, we must set aside all other goals and make Krishna the ultimate goal of our life. That is the kind of an intensity with which we must accept subordination. Such intense, such voluntary and intense acceptance of subordination is called samadhi. And when we are in that state of samadhi, we can perceive the Lord. We can perceive absolute truth only when we are in that state of trance. That is what Shukadev Goswami says. Yadangri abhidhyana samadhi dhautaya dhyanu pashyanti tattvam atmanaha. How can we pashyanti means see? Pashyanti tattvam atmanaha. Pashyanti tattvam. One will be able to see the absolute truth. Tattvam pashyanti. Or atmanaha tattvam pashyanti means you can understand the true nature of ourself. You can see it both ways. You can also see it as tattvam, atmanaha tattvam. You will be able to see the truth of the Paramatma, of the Lord. Pashyanti, how? Yadangri abhidhyana samadhi dhautaya dhiyaha. Two things are required, Shukadev Goswami is saying. One is dhautaya dhihi, cleansed consciousness, purified consciousness, and in a state of samadhi. And samadhi achieved by yadangri abhidhyana samadhi dhautaya, by constant meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord. If one does not do this, what happens? Vadanti chaitat kavayo yatarucham. So people who don't have this transcendental realization, who have not seen the absolute truth, they vadanti, they speak kavayo, such people who don't have this, meet these qualifications, vadanti chaitat kavayo yatharucham vadanti. In their own way they speak. That is why Prabhupada says, we should hear from Tattvadarshinaha. We should read books written by Tattvadarshinaha, those who have seen the truth. And how to see the truth? Samadhi, dhautaya, dihi, pashyanti, tattvam atmanaha. So, transcendental realization of Krishna happens in the state of trance. And the trance means complete absorption. It begins with accepting subordination of the subordination to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what is the state of existence in the spiritual world. And so, the sages here are wondering, Tadharminam nivasatam vishamasvabhavaha. How have they, here they are nivasatam, they are residents of the spiritual world, but they are vishamasvabhavaha. How have they developed this discordant mentality? Discordant means incongruous, something that's not appropriate. How have they developed this? So, that is the question, and hence they are saying, Atmavat kuhakayo parishankaniyaha. This is another important word. Kuhakaha. Kuhaka means duplicity, deception, cheating. That is why in the very first verse of the Bhagavatam, Nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi. That spiritual world, spiritual abode is nirasta kuhakam, free from all such dualities and such illusions. So, that is the qualification of somebody to enter the spiritual world. Kuhakaha, nirasta kuhakam, tat dharminam, vishamasvabhavaha, given up vishamasvabhavaha. And there in the spiritual world, Krishna is prashanta purushaha. There are no disturbances in the spiritual world. And gata vigraha, there is no enmity there in the spiritual world. And how have these people, these two doormen, how are they here? How are they in the spiritual world? They don't seem to be fit to be in the spiritual world. Like this, the sages are saying, and these are the qualities of the residents of the spiritual world. This is the situation in the spiritual world, and why such doorkeepers have made a mistake of stopping the four Kumaras from entering the spiritual world. That's the question which we will continue to explore in the coming verses. We'll stop here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, श्रील प्रभुपाद।